you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on ClueCon Weekly. Today is May 22nd, 2019, and we are joined by SC Lee of Poly, who is going to give us a presentation and a demo of Poly's legendary audio. So now we'll go on over to SC Lee and let's get into it.
Hey, Madison. Thanks for inviting me. Good morning, good afternoon. How are all of you doing today? Very happy to be back here again. This is my third presentation at this event. For my first two sessions, I spoke about Polycom OB Edition desktop phones, and also its cloud management, its flexibility, and some of the programmability aspect of our OB Edition. My goal today is to focus on the third aspect. We call that the Poly or Polycom Legendary Audio Experience. Notice that we are calling ourselves Poly. As you guys are aware, Plantronics bought Polycom about a year ago, close to a year now. And over the last couple of months, we went through a rebranding exercise. So the new company, the combined company of Polycom and Plantronics, is now called Poly. So during my presentation, I will be using Poly as a reference, but it actually stands for Polycom and Plantronics coming together as one single company.
Great.
So without delay, let me jump straight into Poly's audio innovations. Right.
Let's do it.
Yes, let's do that, Madison. So if you look at Poly, we have been in audio for many, many years now. Right. I'm not sure you guys know, the first sound station conference phone was shipped back in 1992. Right. So if you kind of reverse that back, it was almost 27 years ago where we introduced and revolutionized the whole conferencing domain by introducing that boomerang style conference phone. And right around 2000, Simpsons actually show our conference phone at one of their shows. Right. This is such an iconic product, right? I mean, we have this product everywhere. In fact, when I start talking to people about Polycom, they know us by, hey, yeah, that little conference phone that sits in, many different meeting areas, right? So my goal today is to kind of, talk through all the different audio innovations, right? All the different technology that we built over the last close to 3 decades to deliver amazing audio experience across the Polycom solution. But before I jump into that, I really want to quickly recap on the product that I kind of talked to you guys in the first 2 sessions, right? And we call that the new Polycom X50 OB Edition, right? I presented this slide in my first 2 sessions, right? And the part that I want to highlight today is the audio experience, right? In the first 2 sessions, I talk about the cloud management, right? The programmability, the customization of the entire phone. And again, today, my focus is on audio, right? And there is a reason why I'm going to be spending a lot of time today on audio is because at the end of the day, audio is the #1 key element in a human communication, right? If you look at any communication today, right, voice is always #1, right? We could have video calls, right? But if you turn off audio and just leave the video on, the communication is totally broken, right? But if you look at the opposite, right, you leave the audio on and you turn off the video, right, you will still be able to communicate, right? So audio is such an important aspect of human communication. And I'm going to show you guys, or actually give you guys some example why good audio is important. Okay, so let's jump through some of the key things, right? So #1 is clarity, right? How do you make sure that when someone talks, you're able to get the difference, across the S, the F, right, the C's, right, and etc., right, to be able to deliver the clear audio across to your audience is very, very important. And that's the reason why good audio is key. Number two, it minimizes the audio fatigue, right? I have an example here of someone, going to sleep. And that is because when you start to get bad audio, right, you don't understand what the person is saying, right? You just, dislike the call, right? And it puts you to sleep, right? It reduces communication errors, right? In a business, it's very important for you to make sure that when you say the millions versus the billions, right, versus the thousands, right, you articulate that across to your audience, right? You do not want to have any miscommunications, right? And that is one key aspect of a good audio. It reduces the effects of accents, right? If you look at our global economy, right, our global workforce, right, we have people with, Texas style, right, with, Californian style. Like for me, originally grew up in Singapore. People say I still have my Singapore accent, right? So when you have great audio design on your device, it reduces the effects of accents, right? Which translate to good, clear communication across to your audience. Last but not least, when you have good audio design, you compensate for all these bad acoustics, right? You guys are probably very familiar. I mean, I got the luxury to work from my home office, right? So I don't have that open environment where you get all this clanking, clicking noise, right? Employees chit-chatting around the area, right? When you don't have a good audio design or a good audio platform, all this noise will get sent across, which translate to really, really bad audios. Okay. So let's talk about what are some of the key factors of a good acoustic experience, right? Acoustic/audio, right? And I'm going to walk you guys through a couple of the key factors that we typically talk about when we design a conference phone, when we design a desktop phones, right? When we design any of our audio solutions today within the Poly's solution. Number one, we call this a sound loudness rating, right? So when I'm talking to you right now, right, what is the loudness that's getting across, right? So as I'm talking, right, you guys are listening to me right now. So this audio that's going across is considered a sound loudness rating, right? And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, on a typical desktop phone, we actually measure both the handset and the speakerphone, right? So when you talk about sound loudness, when you pick up the handset, what the audience is hearing, right, is the handset sound loudness rating. When I put you on speakerphone, what you're receiving on the opposite end is also considered a sound loudness rating, right? So that is one very important factor that we measure. Number two is the received loudness rating, right? So for this scenario here is very different because I'm presenting, right? So I'm talking, right? But if Madison starts to speak, her voice is going to come across to me as a received loudness rating, right? Again, there are two different measurements. One on the handset, right? So when you're listening, that is called the received loudness rating on handset. When you're on a speakerphone, whatever you receive back from the opposite end is considered a received loudness rating. The third key one is duplexity. This is one area that we shined compared to many of our peers out there, right? To design a really good desktop phone, to design a really good conference phone, you have to make sure that when you double talk, right? So let's say I'm talking, and all of a sudden, Madison jump in and say, hey, SC, do you mind elaborating more on that, right? That cross-talk effect on how do you make sure that the received loudness rating on Madison's side is still loud and clear. The sound loudness rating on Madison's side is still loud and clear. And for my side, I'm getting Madison's voice over it, loud and clear, right? So the duplexity is one very, very key element, right? And today, all our speakerphones on our desktop phones and our conference room system are full duplex, right? And that is something that's really hard to achieve, right? Making sure that you have great loudness rating, great clarity with zero echo to deliver the full duplexity on our product. Echo loss. right? We talk about this, right? How do you make sure that there are no echoes, right? So if Madison starts to talk really loud and I have my speakerphone volume way up, how do you make sure that her voice is not getting sent back to her? And which usually translates to very, very bad audio experience when you start to hear your own voice coming across from the opposite end. I'm pretty sure you guys experienced that in many of your meetings before. Frequency response is another thing that we measure, and I'll show you guys a few examples, right? If you look at our human voice today, right, it's loudness and the frequency, right? A good example is, you guys usually go to your car audio, you guys adjust the bass and the treble, right? So the bass is what we call the lower frequency. The treble is kind of the higher frequency, right? And for humans, our key audible frequency is between 2,000 to about 4,000 hertz, right? So when you design a product, how do you make sure that you accentuate those key audible frequency? That way, the opposite end is able to clearly understand what you were trying to relay. And last but not least is have a consistent, high quality sound across the entire experience, right? Just imagine as I'm talking, right? My loudness just fluctuate from low to high, right? Sometimes there is a 100 milliseconds delay, sometimes a 50 milliseconds delay, right? So the consistency of loudness, the consistency of latencies and delays, it's also critical, right? And removing all these other artifacts from the background, which is my next point, is no unnecessary noise, right? So if you look at this, these are the 7 key factors that we typically measure and ensure that we have the highest performance when we designed any of our endpoints or UC system today in the market. But before I jump into more, I think it's important for us to understand our year, right? At the end of the day, we are designing our product so that human is able to communicate better, right? And human communicates via 2 methods. 1 is your mouth, right? And that's when you speak, right? And 2 is your ear, right? You listen to it, right? And let's make sure we understand the behavior of our ear. That way we're able to design our product to really suit the consumption model, right, of your ear. So just a couple key points on human ear, right? So today, regular humans, and it varies between your age group, right? The audible frequency ranges from about 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, right? We are most sensitive in the area of about 2,000 hertz to 5,000 hertz. We start to hear some noise and some voice when you are about 0 dB and above. But once it crosses 85 dB, and if you live in an area with prolonged exposure, it's actually harmful for humans, right? And if you want to look at some examples of different decibel level, on the right I have a few, right? A normal speech is about 55 to 65 dB. Airplane taking off is about 135 to 165 dB, right? Firecrackers, it's about 165 dB and above, right? And one very interesting note about human ears, right? Latency is what we call from mouth to ear, right? As I talk, right? When you guys get it on your ear, right? That is what we call latencies. Humans starts to detect latencies when it crosses 150 milliseconds, okay? And this is key, right? Because at the end of the day, when you talk about voice over IP, is going across a voice over IP network, right? Which is, latency sensitive, right? In the old days, PSTN network, where there's a dedicated wired line, the latency on that is typically about 20 milliseconds, right? But today with voice over IP, you get about 30 to 50 milliseconds. Like I say, don't cross 150. Once you cross 150 milliseconds, humans will start to feel the latencies and delay. Okay, I just have a few examples of reports that we typically get, right? Again, this is example. This is not a actual audio report from any of our phones, right? I want to make it generic. The actual result from our phone is actually better than this, but this is what you get in the market, right? When you say, "Hey, SC, share with me your audio quality statistics, right, on your product," right? On the left, it's a pie chart. Right. If you look at, HFT stands for hands-free mode, right? If you look at top right, there's a letter called SLR, which stands for send to latency ratio, right? There is TMOS score, right, which is the MOS score when you send, right? MOS score when you receive, right? The echo performance, right? And on the right is a chart that we typically run through on all our handsets and speakerphone, right? So, there are a lot of standards out there to kind of make sure that if you meet this chart, you have a good enough device to send out to the market, right? Notice on the frequency response chart, notice the little spike that go up at around the 2000 range, right? So that is an area that a lot of phone vendors are trying to strike, right? You want to make sure that when someone speaks in the 2 to 4,000 range, you look at ways to accentuate that, right? You increase that to the point that you're not breaking the standards, right? It's very important that you do spectrum mask, because if you cross any of this, you will fail and you will not be able to ship any of your products globally, because they are hearing aids devices, right, in the market that you will not be able to cross this in order for you to ship to those audience. Okay. So you might ask, SC, you talk so much about, all this audio, right? Understanding human ears, right? What are some of the key factors you need to measure in order to, deliver great audio quality? Why should you care? It's the differentiation, right? It's huge, right? If we don't continue to innovate on audio, if we don't continue to deliver the great audio experience, people are like, SC, why don't I just use my smartphone, right? Why don't I just use my PC to make phone calls? Right? Why do I need to buy a Poly desktop phone? Why do I need to go buy a Poly conference phone in all my conference room? Right? Audio is a key differentiation for desktop phones or conference phones or even video systems around the world. So how do we differentiate? I kind of started the presentation sharing with you guys. We got into this market about 27 years ago with our introduction of our conference phone, right? And over the last 2 to 3 decades, we built out a portfolio of intellectual properties, right? Trademarks, patents, right? And here are some examples of the building blocks that are currently available across all Poly solutions today, right? And I'm going to talk through a couple of them depending on time, right? And I do have a video at the end of this presentation to kind of show you guys some of this in real life, right? So we have noise block, right? I'm going to go from the left, right? Moving counterclockwise, okay? We're going to go noise block, right? It blocks all the noise, crackling noise, people clapping hands, right? Paper noise. Acoustic fence, right? How do we make sure that when you're talking, we fence you, right? So all the noise around you will not get sent across. Music mode, right? If you're using your system to send a medical audio across, to send some, instrument across, how do you tune your audio so that audio gets sent across really well, right? Spatial audio, keyboard noise reduction, smart pairing, right? Echo cancellation, gain control, right? When you have multiple speakers talking at the same time, how do you make sure they automatically adjust so that there isn't a sudden loudness or sudden softness to the audio across the opposite side? We have patterns in packet loss, right? There's a technology called Siren that Poly inherited when we bought PictureTel, right? So, really want to quickly share with the audience, we are investing in this area and we are continuing to own many, many different intellectual property in the audio domain. So let's talk about automatic gain control, right? So what is automatic gain control, right? You guys probably heard that before, right? And what is the problem it's trying to solve, right? So number one, in any conference room, you typically have 5, 10 different participants, right? And people are all brought up differently, right? Some are soft speaker, some are loud speaker, right? So how do you ensure that when different people talks, the audio going across to the opposite end is consistent, right? The last thing you want is, when SC talk versus Madison talk, the opposite audience will need to go in and increase the volume or decrease the volume, right? So with automatic gain control, the device will actually automatically sense the different speaker and kind of normalize it such a way that the opposite end will get one very consistent audio loudness. The The second one is echo cancellation. This is actually a very, very common one used across many, many different products, right? Because today, not all phone calls are on the handset. Not all phone calls are on a headset, right? Many times you put the phone on speakerphone, right? So when you're speakerphone, you got to make sure that all the voice coming back from the opposite end is not going to get sent across, right? How do you cancel the echo, right? And that is, echo cancellation. The third one is what we call music mode, right? So as you guys are aware, at Poly, we sell a lot of immersive video system, large room system, right? And we have customers that use our audio devices to, send music across to the opposite end, right? Orchestra across to the opposite end, right? So we have an option called music mode. When you set the system to music mode, the clarity, right, is different from voice, right? And it sounds much better when the opposite end receives that same music. The third one is noise block. This is really, really key. If you guys have not experienced this, I recommend all of you try it, right? So if you look at my little diagram here, right? So you notice that there's audio source 1 and audio source 2, right? The bottom is the speaker, right? The top is the receiver on the opposite end, right? So let's say at the bottom you're talking, you have a kid so happen to sit right next to you, opening up some chips, right? Playing some paper, right? Our solution has a technology called noise block. It actually knows the difference between a human voice versus paper voice, paper noise, right? Versus chips. It will block that out and not send any of those audio across, right? This is, an ultra amazing technology, and customers love it. And many of our peers are trying to copy it, okay? But we do have intellectual property in this domain. We also have some audio technology in pairing, right? So again, many people are trying to do the same thing, right? And this is by using ultra high frequency to kind of send signature. So that way, if you are on a video call on your smartphone or a tablet, as you walk into a meeting room with a large immersive system, we will allow you to easily now continue that conversation on that big screen without even trying to log in, log out, right? And that is using our ultrasonic waves to pair the tablets. And it now allows you to use the tablet more for control, but the immersive system for your video and for your audio, right? This is becoming very common, but we kind of led this, we started this many, many years ago. And that is, how do you make sure that the left-right speaker on your near end is getting sent across as the right, left-right speaker, right? So if you look at our technology today, we do have, a way to kind of make sure that, hey, the left side is going to get sent across to the right speaker. So as you're hearing, looking at Madison, right, versus looking at Josh, you know which direction is coming, right? So we do offer our stereo audio technology. The next one is keyboard noise reduction. As I'm tapping, right, I'm not sure you guys heard some of the keyboard that's getting sent across. We actually have a technology that actually blocks those out, right? So outside of paper noise, outside of chips noise, as you are typing, we will block out all the keyboard noise that gets sent across. The last technology I really want to highlight is called Acoustic Fence. Let's talk about what are some of the common problems, right? So open cubicle environment is very, very common today, right? And people tend to talk loud, right? For this example here is, hey, did you see The Bachelor last night, right? And if you're here talking to a customer, right, talking to your friends or family, right, you don't want that audio from your colleagues getting sent across, right? So the way that we perform echo cancellation or noise cancellation with Acoustic Fence is we use the reference mic in the room system, or on the desk phone, there's a reference mic. As you're on a handset, we use that mic as a way to identify all this noise, and we cancel that, right? So that did you see The Bachelor last night will not get sent across, but everything that you say will be clearly articulated across, right? This is a technology that all customers love, and many customers actually have it on by default across all our products. So if you look at it, I like to use this example, right? It's like, you have this little shoe, right? So as you're sitting in an open area, right? All the noises, all the voice, even though your ear might be able to hear it, but the device will actually cancel it, so it will not get sent across, right? So it allows you to deliver superior sound quality, enable noise and echo-free conversation, right? With our advanced voice processing, right? So, we use a lot of our DSP, intellectual property, to make sure that we cancel all this noise. And with that, I would like to kind of quickly share with you guys a video that really kind of highlight all this key technology today on our products.
One of the biggest interruptions during video calls is distracting background noise. That's why Polycom Studio features our exclusive Noise Block technology. Noise Block listens for noise and automatically filters it out of the call.
So guys, hopefully this helped explain a little bit more on what our strategy is. This migration to the cloud will give you this information.
When you're in an open workspace or a regular meeting room and that happens, you're covered. Polycom Acoustic Fence that keeps out not just distracting sounds, but also outside voices. Noise Block and Acoustic Fence technology, the tools you need to fight background noise and office distractions. Polycom Studio, the USB video bar built for small rooms and big ideas.
Okay, so just to kind of quickly sum up on the audio innovation, right? Why is it important, right? So, all these are the building blocks and innovations that we have today across Poly Solution, designed to make your user experience better, right? Again, voice is the #1 element in human communication, right? And you got to make sure that with it's noise free, right? Loud and clear, right? All the audible frequencies are sent across, and there are no miscommunications, right? Second point, all this innovation comes standard as part of our Poly Solution, right? So when you buy an OB edition desktop phones, you get the Acoustic Fence technology, right? You get the echo cancellation, right? The full duplex audio that comes standard with all our products. And last but not least, our competitors are trying to catch up, right? In fact, many of them are copying what we're doing. But one thing I do want to note, we own many of this intellectual property. So, many of our competitors are not able to get as close as what we have today on our products. With that, I'd like to thank you, Madison, for having me. I hope you find the last 25 to 30 minutes useful. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, SC. You guys have a really great product going there, and I really, really appreciate all the time you put into presenting that to us today. We really appreciate you being here. Actually, it's funny. I was watching TV the other day, and there was a commercial on for, I think, pretzels, and there's this guy sitting at his home office. He's on a conference call, and you can hear him crunching the pretzels, and and his colleague says, can you mute your line? So that's right. Not to worry, with Poly, you can eat your pretzels and be in the conference too.
Right, that's correct. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the noise distraction that we're seeing, right? The interruption to, meetings, right? It's going to be solved with the Poly Solution. So absolutely. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. If anybody has any questions for SC, please go ahead and leave those in the comments, and we can try and get those answered as soon as possible. And also stay tuned for our guest next week, Diego Gosmar, who will run through 2 ways to deliver the agent desktop experience, both SIP-based application clients or WebRTC. And also, you can join us in our call with Ken Rice and Michael Mavridis, who are going to just have an open call that anyone can pop into and say hi or ask questions. So if you'd like to stay for that, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.